this video, we're going to be looking at the concept of evolution, something that a lot of people get very, very confused about. So why do they get confused? Well, because you're used to seeing these sort of images around the place, which was used in early papers when Charles Darwin put forward the theory of evolution. And a lot of people got very confused with that, and so do people now, where they think that we evolve from lower forms of apes. That's not what it's saying, and we're going to explore that and come back to this picture to explain what's going on. But basically the concept of evolution is this, that organisms change gradually over long periods of time. Now, what you've got to remember, when I say long periods of time, we're talking millions of years. Okay, so organisms like bacteria, very small organisms, will have a small change. And as we look back through our fossil record, etc., this tends to back up this idea that we started from simple organisms and have changed over long periods of time by small little incremental changes until the form we see today in a lot of organisms that we look around us, including ourselves. So it's gradual change. It's not like we reproduce and we see that our offspring now has an extra arm, right? It's gradual change. And we're going to look into those concepts and reinforce this as we go. The second thing is that changes occur at the genetic level and that they're passed on to the next generation. So whatever change occurs, right, whether it be through genetic mutation or whether it be just through natural genetic variation, those small changes occur at the gene level, and that those changes are passed on through reproductive processes to the next generation, and therefore they are inherited. So that's what evolution is all about. Small, gradual changes at the gene level that are inherited and passed on to the next generation. So let's have a look at this graphic here, which just is a graphic of the geological timeline. And this has been put together by looking at a lot of evidence, fossil evidence, etc. And it does show that progression from simple to more complex. So we can see along here we've got our millions of years ago, and as we go back in time to 4.5 billion years ago, okay, we have very, very simple form of life, probably not even there, form of life. Form of life started to come around about 2.5 billion years or so ago in very, very primitive bacteria. But at 4.5 billion years ago, this is when the Earth was sort of formed, and there was no life form there. However, we can see here that we start forming simple-celled organisms around about 3.5 to 3 billion years ago, and those are extremely simple life forms. And as we go through time, we notice that the complexity of those organisms starts to increase. We can start to see from unicellular forms to multicellular forms as the truck goes past. Right, so we can see that those complex cells joining together, they start to form organisms that now have dedicated tissues and organs to enable them to move, etc. And as we get up in time, closer to where we are now, the complexity of life forms increases. So in other words, evolution is where life has evolved and created to produce from simple to more complex organisms. It's not what we see in other theories which look at the life form is the life that we see today has always been around, etc. So we're going to end this video by this question: the mechanism of change. If we know that evolution is the movement of life from simple to complex through small gradual changes, what is it that causes this gradual change? Okay, what mechanism? Right, the word mechanism is telling us that how something is produced, how something is made. Well, what is the force, the mechanism, the process that causes this change from one time period to the next? And so we're going to be looking at two sort of theories here. We're going to be looking at use and disuse, right, that was put forward by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, and he was all about acquired characteristics, and we're going to look into that. Then, of course, there was the one that is more favoured now, is natural selection, evolution by natural selection, and that was put forward by Charles Darwin, but also Wallace put forward this theory as well. So let's get into those videos, but that's it for this video.